All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lisa Partida with Home Again LA, and I have Tom Fuentes with Bank of Hope today. And today's topic is going to be protecting your identity. So I'll go ahead and pass it along to Tom.
Thanks, Lisa. Um, I got a little cold, so my throat's a little scratchy, so sorry for the way I sound. But yeah, so tonight we have Module 11, Protecting Your Identity and Other Assets. This is going to be kind of a quick topic. It's three sections, but the last section covers like insurance plans specifically and kind of things like that. I'd like to focus more on the protecting your identity aspect of this because it's kind of like the main topic of the module. So we're going to cover the first two sections. And the first section is going to talk about risk. All right, so risks to your assets. So after this section, we're going to be able to identify risk to assets and identify ways to reduce risks. And the key takeaway, be aware of risk to your assets, prepares you to take steps in order to reduce those risks. So first, let's go into some kind of like key term definition kind of stuff. So something that you own that has a value is called an asset. And then risk is the potential for harm. Harm includes losing something of value or having its value go down. You can protect the value of your assets by taking steps to reduce the risks. You're going to see throughout when we do the financial literacy workshops, depending on the topic that we're covering, that in the participant guide for whatever topic we're talking about, that there's going to be try it sections. So check this out after the workshop, but essentially in this try it section, you're spotting risk to your assets. So essentially what we have here, and I don't think we have the full breakdown, but I'll tell you what it is. We're going to identify some assets. So what you can see here, we have cash. We have your house if you've purchased a home. What about your car? Or what about your job? You can think of your job as an asset. So we need to identify some risks to those. So pretty easily, I mean, when we think about cash, a risk could be someone could steal it. Um, and then another risk for cash that we could easily associate is you could just simply lose it. Both kind of stink, but those are just the legit risks. Can we think about risks associated to your home? A disaster could damage your home. Um, think of like those rainy seasons where you may find a leak in your roof and you may need to replace your roof. That ain't cheap, you know? Do you have an emergency fund set aside in order to pay for that repair? What's another one? I don't think we've seen this lately because the housing market, for whatever reason, has been pretty darn stable, pretty like kind of on the upward trend, right? But your home is an asset, and what's a risk to it? Well, the value of your house could go down due to economic changes. It could go down based on whether your community um, has gone through some changes too, right? Um, but just in general, a bad housing market. Think about that last like huge financial crisis we had in 2008. Man, that caused home prices to go down dramatically. So definite risk could be economic factors, or again, it could be community factors. Perhaps maybe for whatever reason, crime went up in your area. For whatever reason, maybe more natural disasters happened in your area and insurance premiums go up. So there could be a whole host of things. What about your car, right? God forbid, because I know how much it can cost. In fact, we can just talk about it. One of our cars, our air conditioner went out. And I don't know if you guys know how much it costs to repair your air conditioning in your car, but what happens if you need a costly repair? man, to get your AC serviced or completely repaired in your car is a ton of money. Do you have an emergency fund set aside for that kind of repair? God forbid your car breaks down. I mean, thankfully we're able to drive that car still, right? Um, but what would happen if you needed a brand new engine transmission? What if you needed new tires? Tires are so expensive, or in a brake job, right? Basically, these things are risks. What's the major risk to your car, though, when you're out driving? God forbid you get into an accident, right? A small fender bender, even a little bit of damage. You go to the grocery store and a cart rams up against your car and creates aesthetic damage. That could be costly too. What about if someone either stole or damaged your car purposefully? Maybe your car got keyed, God forbid. That would really suck, right? And then of course, perhaps maybe you bought too much car for your current situation. You bought a car that you couldn't afford. Or maybe, God forbid, you lost your job or something, right? But what if your car got repossessed because you didn't make all of your loan payments? Remember that, your car is used as collateral when you're taking out a loan. If you don't pay your loan, they'll come get your car. Identifying your job as an asset, I think, is smart, right? Because that's our main source of income. But what's a risk to that? Maybe you're unable to work because of illness. Like at the jump, when we started this workshop, I explained, man, I just woke up one day this week and I caught a cold. I don't feel very well. That kind of inhibits my ability to go to work, right? So, and what happens if you have an injury that makes it to where you can't work your regular job, right? Um, you could also have the potential of losing your job, right? You could get laid off. What about your hours could be reduced for whatever reason? Yeah, so ton of risk associated to those four major assets. But go to this part of the participant guide. Um, think about some of the the things that we talked about now. If I missed anything, jot it down. And I think this is a good exercise because well, first off, once we identify the asset and then we identify the risk, we can think about ways to reduce or eliminate them completely, which let's get to that now. And then one thing I have to say, though, it's important to remember is that there's no way that you can eliminate all risks. I guess the main takeaway from this section is going to be kind of like, what's our best way to reduce? So make informed choices that anticipate risks. If you're aware of risk, you can anticipate them. For example, if you're aware of the risk of cash getting lost or stolen, you might choose to save some or all of your money at the bank. And then what's that added protection on your cash? Well, if you deposit it at a bank, you're FDIC insured up to $250,000 per signer on the account. If you deposit your money at a credit union, you're insured by the NCUA up to $250,000 per signer. So double benefit, right? At a secured location, insured by those two entities. Be careful with your personal information. Being careful about how you store and share your personal and financial information can reduce the risks of identity theft, potential loss of assets, and possible damage to your credit history. Um, the whole like digital age thing, this is not new anymore. We've been living this now for like, I would say since probably the beginning of the 2000s. You have to be very careful when you're using the internet and all the different ways that your personal information is being used um, online, right? It's important to know your rights and responsibilities, understand the protections provided by the law, and know what to do if those laws have been violated. And then finally, get insurance. Insurance can reduce the financial impact of a covered loss. And the obvious one, and by law, if you buy a car, well, you have to have car insurance. And this is a two-way street. Car insurance can help pay for repairs to your car due to an accident on both sides, right? If you are the one that creates the accident, you need to have that coverage not only to repair your car, but to repair the other person's as well. And next, we have an apply it section in the participant guide on page 5, which is risk to my assets. Um, so you can complete the worksheet after the workshop to identify risk to your assets and what steps you may want to take to reduce those risks. And I think this is an important table. Give me one moment real quick. So we were like generic on our first try it in the participant guide, right? We identified those main four: cash, house, car, job. This kind of now makes it a little bit more personal, right? Because we're going to put in all the things that we can identify as assets. And remember what our key term identified, that assets are things that have value, and that value can go up and can go down. And our asset table is going to be filled out a little bit differently. So what are some ideas of things that we would be able to throw into the my assets column? And then our next column is what are the risks associated to that asset? And then how can we reduce those risks? Let's think of a few examples. So one of the things that we can broadly expand on that cash uh, category that we had in that first try it, what if we extended it out to say like investments? So if you're invested into the stock market, we could consider your 401k as an asset, your brokerage account as an asset, but more specifically, if you've bought stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, so on and so forth. So if you bought a mutual fund, let's just call it FXAIX. That's the mutual fund that tracks the S&P 500 from Fidelity. So a share of FXAIX would be an asset, right? Well, what's a risk to you purchasing a mutual fund? Well, the risk is the same risk that we associated to when we mentioned buying a house. It has to do with the economic ebbs and flows that we find ourselves in at a certain place in time. So that asset could go down in value based on how the economy is doing. So look at what we're going through now. There's a war in Iran, right? That has, well, not really caused an overall kind of decrease in the market. The market's actually pretty going steadily up now. But there's other risks that are associated, like inflation could be a risk. What about if you bought a single stock, not a mutual fund or ETF, which is a collection of stocks? What if you bought a company that you didn't uh, research well enough and that company went out of business? Well, then you're going to lose that asset altogether because the company doesn't exist anymore. And what was in the news more recently, and and I hate to name names, but did you see the headline about Spirit Airlines? Spirit Airlines, that budget carrier went out of business. If you had stock in Spirit, you'd no longer have a value in that asset. So how can you reduce the risk associated to buying a stock? Do research into the companies that you're going to be buying, things like that. Anyhow, check out this section. think about the other assets that you might have. Remember anything with value, identify those risks associated, and then how you can identify to reduce those risks. Okay, so that brings us to the close of our first section. Being aware of the risk to your assets prepares you to take steps to reduce those risks. In our second and final section, we're going to be defining a lot of key terms, and we're going to shift into the identity theft and fraud category now. So we're going to define identity theft and fraud, identify warning signs of identity theft and fraud, list steps to minimize the risks of identity theft and fraud, and then describe important steps for responding to identity theft and fraud. So, you can reduce your risk of identity theft. Help is available if it happens to you. So let's just talk about the basics and identify some key terms. So just as we identified like your job as an asset in our first section, we really need to start thinking about your identity as being an asset as well. For example, it can help you get the job that you want, be approved for a loan. It can help you rent an apartment and even open a bank account. There are risks to your identity, and a major one is ID theft. And unfortunately, whenever we cover this topic, I always bring it up. When I used to work at the branch, I was the person that often did the ID theft affidavits that we had to fill out when a customer would come in and let us know that they were the victim of ID theft. It's a whole process. Um, and I wish that we didn't see it happen as often as we did, but it was a common occurrence, unfortunately. Um, which is why whenever we do these workshops, I always kind of try to hit home the idea that have a good relationship with your banker at your local branch, get to know the manager, the staff, because you never know when you're going to need to go in and do something like an ID theft affidavit or a stolen check affidavit, or maybe you overdrafted your account for whatever reason and you want to try to get an overdraft fee waived. So really important to have a good relationship with your local branch staff. Um, Identity theft is a crime that happens when someone uses a person's identifying information without their authority. For example, someone might open credit cards in your name. Your identity can be stolen by family, friends, or strangers. So, what do we mean by identity when we talk about ID theft? There are many different pieces of information that make up your identity. Your identity includes information in documents that can be used to verify who you are. Um, and I don't think we have it listed here, but uh, in the participant guide on page 6 and 7, I'm sorry I don't have the page here that shows it, but there's examples of the type of information that makes up your identity, what identity thieves usually go after. So even though I don't have the table here, let's just verbally go over some of those things that make up your identity. And give me one quick sec here. Yeah, so there's several different things that make up your identity. What about and the documents that make up your identity, right? What about your social security card or your social security number, Medicare identification card, or other health insurance identification card? What about your birth certificate, driver's license card, or ID number? your state ID card or ID number, your passport, your individual taxpayer identification number, your ITIN, Native American tribal documents, consular identification card, matricula consular card. There's a whole bunch of uh, documents that have that personal identifying information that thieves like to get a hold of to so that they can use it to steal your identity. Um, there's other pieces of information that can be used by thieves to impersonate you as well, but those are kind of like the main ones that we think about. But there's others too, so it's like think about the financial account numbers that are on your credit card statements or your bank statements. So like if those come in, like we still get some of those too, right? I mean, you have to shred them. Um, what about insurance policy information? Tax information from past tax returns. You know, uh, we just got done with tax season. I was reading a news story in March that talked about a huge amount of theft that came off of people filing taxes on people's social security numbers. It's crazy. There's other things too, which would be useful for like renting an apartment, right? What about the history of where you've lived and when in the past? That comes up too as personal identifying information. What about utility account numbers? Of course, the big one, usernames and passwords for your online accounts. Um, your medical information, I think we already talked about that, but more specifically, is there anything that a fraudster could use by having your doctor's name and your medical record number? Possibly. Any other types of like bills, utility bills, water bill, things like that could have information. Sorry, I think I already mentioned, but bank statements. What about checks? One of the things that came up a lot when I worked in the branch was that people lost their checks or they got their brand new check order stolen from their mailbox. So that also could be something. And this is one that happens all the time because we still get the junk mail. But what about credit card offers in the mail? I mean, those go right into my shred bin when we get them. But they have your name, they have your address. Sometimes it says pre-approval. Can someone open that up, send it in, and end up getting a credit card in your name from a pre-approval offer? They sure can. So, important to remember those personal identifying items and then the documents that are associated to them. So another thing we need to consider is like how you could be harmed, right? So the person committing identity theft could do several different things. I mean, they could open accounts in your name at different financial institutions, open up credit cards, and create debt that you're not even associated to, just your name and your personal identifying information. They can access your financial account, steal your money that way. Again, I already mentioned file a false tax return. I don't know. I don't know if this is common, but what about use your identity to obtain prescriptions and medical treatments? Possibly. Your health plan could reject a legitimate medical claim that you have, and then you could find out that you reached your benefits limit when you didn't even like get medical treatment that year, but someone stole your identity to have medical treatment done. I mean, I'm sure this is a thing, right?
It
Um,
is.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
like
I've
it's
heard of that.
absolutely nuts. I mean, and that doesn't even it's not even applicable for just like medical treatment, right? But what about specifically like dental
Prescriptions. Oh,
or
yeah.
prescriptions,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, there's like so many different ways that a fraudster or someone who stole your identity can like get money out of you, and that would just suck so bad. So, Oh, there's just so many different ways. Let's go into uh some key terms real quick because when we're talking about how could you be harmed, there's some specific key terms that we talk about that are here, and to me they're funny, but we're gonna get through them. So first up, we have one of my favorites, phishing. So phishing is when criminals attempt to trick you into giving them your personal information, often through email. A criminal sends a fake email that appears to be from a legitimate source. It could be your bank, it could be the utility company, it could be a well-known merchant like Walmart or Amazon. Um, the emails often look very legitimate, but they're not. They ask you to provide sensitive personal information the criminal can use to steal your identity. So that's the way that they do it through email. Phishing through the phone is called vishing. It's voice phishing. And this one is completely like skyrocketed on the rise of popularity because of AI. Like your voice can be copied instantaneously with those AI like ChatGPT, Claude, those kind of things.
That's scary.
So vishing is on the rise. So be careful when you're talking on the phone now. Phishing through text, excuse me, sorry, my voice cracked. Phishing through text messages is called smishing. That's SMS text phishing. There's also spear phishing, which is a targeted form of phishing in which criminals try to trick groups of people that have something in common. For example, a spearfish scheme might target people who all work at the same company. They may have accounts at the same financial institution. You may have attended the same school. It could have been the same website that you shopped online at. The spear phishing emails looked like they were sent from organizations that people are familiar with and that you trust. But in reality, the criminals created this as a ploy to steal your personal information. We also have farming. Farming is when criminals seek to obtain personal or private information by making fake websites that appear legitimate. One of the ones that came up often when I worked at the branch was skimming. Skimming is when criminals steal your credit or debit card number using a special storage device that they attach to like an ATM or a point of sale machine, where when you swipe your card, it sends your data to a scammer who's in a car nearby who's collecting your information through the swipe electronically. In fact, I saw this when I was looking at news on YouTube the other day. There was a skimmer that was attached at the point of sale machine at a dollar store in, I can't remember what city it was, but it was like 4 or 5 days ago. There's also social media scamming when criminals trick people into giving them personal information on social media sites. These scams sometimes start with a sales pitch about an investment from a person that you both know. Um, yeah, but there's a whole bunch of different ways that your identity can be stolen, but here's just, a few. So, warning signs of ID theft. Watch out for early warning signs. If you see withdrawals from the bank account you didn't make, you don't receive your bills, your account statements, or other mail that you've been expecting. Merchants refuse to accept your checks. Your credit card transactions don't go through. It's really, really super important that you are reviewing your bank statements, your credit card statements at the end of each month to make sure that those transactions that are on there are yours. And it's important to do that because you only have a certain amount of time to report it back to whatever financial institution um, to put in an affidavit that you didn't do those transactions. So just make sure, or at least if you don't, if you're not getting like paper statements still, just go on the app on your phone and look through your transactions to make sure that you remember those are yours. Okay. More warning signs of ID theft. You receive letters thanking you for opening an account you didn't open. Oh my gosh, man. I feel like my heart would drop to my belly if I saw that. Like, I didn't open up a Citibank credit card. What is going on here, right? You receive emails about purchases you didn't make. You receive credit card statements for credit cards that you don't have. Debt collectors call you about debts that aren't yours, or suddenly your passwords or your usernames don't work with your online accounts. All uh, warning signs. Additional warning signs, you find unfamiliar accounts on your credit reports. So, in addition to making sure that you're monitoring your bank statements and your credit card statements, pull that free credit report. Make sure that what you see on there is accurate as well. We already talked about the medical scams, right? What about receiving medical bills for services that you didn't receive? Healthcare providers have records of conditions that you don't have. You go to the doctor for a physical and they mention your diabetes when, well, you were never diagnosed with that. How about that? I mean, it would be like, what's going on here, right? What if the IRS notifies you that there's that more than one tax return was filed in your name for that year? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things, right? Check out this section in the participant guide. It's on page 9 with Karina's um with the example of Karina here. On her way home after work, Karina stops by her mailbox to pick up her mail. As she walks to her apartment, she begins reading her mail. She's happy to see a letter from her daughter and a wedding invitation from her nephew, but she also notices the following pieces of mail: an envelope from her place of worship, from her dentist office, from her bank, a thick envelope with coupons, an envelope from a county government. Anyway, check out this section in the participant guide. I don't think we have the table here. No, we don't have the table, but there's basically a table that has each piece of mail associated, and then whether or not you would identify there being warning signs of ID theft. Now, this is completely coincidental, I have to tell you, because you'll see when you see this part of the participant guide, but I went and got the mail out of the mailbox this morning when the mail carrier dropped it off. And I'm coming in and I'm telling my wife, we had a we had a piece of mail from St. Jude's Children's Hospital, and it was if you ever get mail from St. Jude's or have made a donation in the past to them, they're thanking you and then they're asking if you would like to contribute more. Well, that piece of that, for whatever reason, that envelope was already open. And I was thinking, okay. So it's funny. So when I'm thinking about this part of the participant guide, literally I had 6 pieces of mail and that one was open. So would we identify that as a warning sign of ID theft? I think the likelihood would be no, but I'm telling you, the way that the envelope was open was like someone got their index finger, and I don't know about you, but the way I open up mail is very aggressively and not, uh, you know, it was like
Yeah,
someone opened it up.
that's
So it's
crazy.
like,
I've also
right?
noticed that too, though. I don't know. I've seen it a few times. Actually, my cousin this week opened up a piece of mail from like an insurance carrier, and it looked like it was like they opened like the edge of it. So I don't know. That was weird. She's like,
It's weird.
but it happens a lot, actually.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, check out this part of the participant guide because I mean, it's so crazy and coincidental right now because that happened to me this morning. So, yeah. Again, we don't have the table, but you can see that on the table it's going to be the type of mail and what type of risk associated to that piece of mail. But I mean, why would someone open my St. Jude Children's Hospital mailer? I don't know. Interesting. Um, yeah. So steps to minimize um, ID theft. So guard your personal information closely. Be extremely careful about sharing your SSN, your PIN numbers, your passwords. One of the things that came up when I worked at the branch a lot was that sometimes parents would let their kids use their debit cards and give them their PIN numbers, and then they'd come into the branch and go, "I didn't take out $60 from the ATM. I didn't go to this place of business and spend $60." And we would say, "Did you give anyone your card and your PIN?" And they said, "I gave it to my daughter." Don't do that. You're just opening yourself up for the possibility, right? Um, So yeah, so guard your personal information, guard your pins, guard everything. Um, Change your pins and passwords when you're asked to. Nowadays you're asked to change your passwords after a certain amount of time, um, so that you're not victim of that kind of thing. Don't respond to unsolicited requests. Never provide personal information in response to unsolicited phone calls that you receive. We already talked about like the AI voice generation thing where you can talk and they got your voice. Protect your mail, where you kind of talked about this. I gave you the example of the St. Jude's mailer today. But your mail's an easy target, right? Because it's just sitting right outside. I mean, mine's a little bit harder because it's right by my front door, but anyone that has a mailbox out by the street, someone could just drive by and take your mail. Um, Maybe get a mailbox if you've gone through this. I know in the past my parents have gone through it where people took their mail, where they bought a mailbox that could lock. That's the thing. You may get a post office box, maybe. That could be another thing that you could do. Of course, sign up for a direct deposit. Don't rely on receiving that check in the mail. It could be stolen. Hey, it could get lost in the mail. It could be delivered late. Direct deposit comes into your account, available immediately. Clean up your financial trash. Hey, they're expensive, but maybe buy a shredder so that you're not just putting mailers in the recycle bin that have personal identifying information that fraudsters might want. And then again, we already mentioned this, and it's probably the most important one, but review your financial accounts regularly and carefully. More steps to minimize ID theft. Never be aware of ID theft on the internet. Never provide bank account, credit card, debit, or personal information um, by visiting a website that you're unfamiliar with. Protect your devices, not only your pins and passwords on things like your phone and your laptop and your tablet, but one of the things I always forget about, what about like your Wi-Fi password at home? How often do you change that? Oh my gosh, I don't think we ever change that. Now that I'm saying it, maybe I need to remember to do that because that's just another pin that someone can get a hold of. Review your credit reports on your free credit report, on your annual credit report at annualcreditreport.com. Be aware of disaster related scams. I think a lot of that came out of the fires that were in LA. That's still in the news. It's crazy. And then create an action plan to reduce risk. I mean, it's in the participant guide here on page 11. Come up with your own plan that you're able to monitor closely with those items that we talked about. And then, God forbid, if you are the victim of ID theft, you can go to the Federal Trade Commission's website, the FTC, at identitytheft.gov. And they have an identity theft report that you can fill out if you are the victim of ID theft. And here's a example of what that looks like. If your identity has been stolen, the FTC also advises you to work with credit reporting agencies to respond to ID theft. Credit reporting agencies, also called credit bureaus or credit reporting companies, provide the credit reports. You can put a 7-year extended fraud alert on your account. It's also important to remember, though, that you have to contact all the bureaus. There's the three nationwide ones that I think we're all familiar with: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. It's important to know that you have to contact each. If you do one-on-one, it doesn't carry over to the other. Instead of placing a 7-year alert, though, you can also place a 1-year initial fraud alert if you want. completely free. Um, you can choose to do that if you'd like. Communicate with the creditors and debt collectors, alert them about fraudulent accounts. After you give them a copy of a valid identity theft report, they are not allowed to report fraudulent accounts to the credit reporting agencies. Get copies of documents related to the theft of the ID so that you have supporting documentation. Ask them to stop contacting you about fraudulent accounts, debt collectors, that kind of thing. Get written information about fraudulent accounts, including the name of the creditor and the amount you supposedly owe. You have other federal rights related to ID theft. You can see them at identitytheft.gov. For example, you generally have limited liability for fraudulent debts caused by ID theft. The amount of your liability depends on what type of financial product was used in the theft. And then in many states, businesses or organizations that lose or misplace certain types of information, personal information must tell you if that's happened. To learn more, you can go to USA.gov and search for data breach and your state name for any data breach information that's associated to the state of residency. So that brings us to our section close and our close for the workshop this afternoon. Um, so remember, you can reduce your risk of ID theft, and help is available if it happens to you. Um, yeah, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to help.
I don't believe we have any questions, but um, I just wanted to kind of share this situation that we came across last week with a family, or actually a senior couple. Recently, they were, I guess they had authorized some charges on their account, and they ended up getting just like gypped basically, and like they stole about like through over $3,000 on their account. Um, and I guess they put their account on, they froze their account and all that, and they're basically going like through this audit investigation process just to try to see if they can recover any money. But
Yeah.
because, I mean, what's your take on that? I guess most credit
Was it
unions, yeah, go ahead.
was it through the mail?
I don't believe so. It seems like either somebody called them or somebody had gained access somehow to their account or they had authorized the payment. So by them authorizing that automatically kind of gives them authority to hand over that money, right? Like there's no way to recover it.
Yeah, I mean, the it depends what type of financial institution facilitated the payment. So it's like if it was through a bank,
Hmm.
the remediation process would be for them to go into their local branch and they would fill out a formal affidavit of ID theft and all the necessary documents. It's different per bank.
Hmm.
Um, and the bank would fight uh, whatever entity it was that got a hold of the money. And sometimes even you would be reimbursed um, despite the bank's ability to recover the money. If this was something like someone authorized a charge on their credit card, it's actually even easier because the credit card companies kind of work the same way as the financial institution would. We'd fill
Hmm.
out an affidavit. Um, but this sounds pretty similar to the scams I saw when I worked at the branch.
Yeah.
We saw this happen in many ways. One through the mail, which would be um, you've won $100,000 in this random sweepstakes. We just need you to send us a $100 check to pay for processing fees or whatever, and then we'll send you the money. When you send your check, the person has all the personal identifying information that they need from you, your name, your address, your routing, and your account number.
Checking number. Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so it's different. I mean, in the situation that you're talking about, it sounds like the couple had to authorize the payment. I mean, um, I guess it's hard. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm actually gonna see them tomorrow. I'm gonna try to get more information. But yeah, it's sad because they're up there. They're like, in their 80s and
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
money that they need that
yeah.
was stolen through whatever means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate you taking the time talking about this today. I'm sure it's very helpful for anybody right now listening. So thank you so much, and I hope you feel better.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.